Washington.
Western Australia's volunteer bushfire, SES and sea rescue leaders are calling for a fairer share of the $400 million raised each year from a levy to fund the state's emergency services. The WA Minister for Emergency Services concedes the system to resource the state's 25,000 volunteers needs fixing and is forming an independent committee to oversee spending.
They are WA's frontline firefighters, part of an army of 26,000 West Australians volunteering to serve their communities. For the last 15 years, ratepayers have paid more than $3 billion in levies to support WA's emergency services. $256 million has been spent equipping and supporting volunteer bushfire brigades, but critics say the funding system is broken.
Our fundamental issue for a very long time has been about the accountability and transparency of the process.
The Emergency Services Levy goes direct to DFES, which passes some funds back to local councils, which then manage the resourcing of the volunteer brigades.
The ESL has increased steadily, but the percentage to bushfire brigades and the bushfire service has stayed flat.
Local councils use a manual to decide what will be paid for under the grants, but it's claimed those guidelines are complex and restrictive.
Nobody's applying for a jacuzzi. They're all applying for, connection to the power grid, a toilet, thermal imaging cameras.
Some brigades, like the Calgon Volunteers, are choosing to bypass the grant system and raise their own funds for the equipment they need. They're aiming for $300,000 through the sale of this home to replace their ageing fire sheds. The money and labour has been donated by local businesses.
We've gone that way because we thought it was a bit difficult to do it through government, too slow.
In 2017, the Economic Regulation Authority recommended the state government appoint an independent organisation to advise how ESL funds are spent.
Because at the moment it seems that someone at the top makes a decision that a particular piece of equipment doesn't apply, and that's it. There's no recourse on that at all. And that is, frankly, unacceptable when you're talking about $406 million worth of ratepayers' money.
The Minister accepts the grant guidelines for volunteers needs looking at, but he says the ESL has to cover all emergency services.
Some of those brigades and people who may well feel that they're not getting a fair share of the ESL, I'm absolutely 100% sure they just don't understand how far that money is stretched.
Mr Logan is forming a committee to oversee how the ESL is spent. Mark Bennett, ABC News, Albany.